Despite the fact that the mainstream media has been trying to protect Disney for the past several years, it is now inarguable that 2022 was a complete disaster for them. And the first 5 or 6 months of 2023 haven't been any better. In fact, it may have only gotten worse, especially when you look at all the different box office failures for Disney. They desperately need to turn this around. They desperately need something to be a big winner for them. But unfortunately, it doesn't look like it's going to be the case when it comes to Elemental. The next flop from Pixar, after we had Lightyear last year, which had a production budget of $200 million, barely cracked $200 million at the global box office, ended up losing hundreds of millions of dollars for Disney when you factor in the theater cut, when you factor in the marketing costs, all of this stuff. They needed Elemental to be a smash hit, but it is the exact opposite of that. In fact, it looks like it's going to flop even harder than Lightyear did. Elemental is shaping up to be another Pixar flop, and sure enough, the Thursday numbers are in, and it's worse than people were possibly imagining. Elemental earns $2.4 million at Thursday box office. The latest Pixar original may struggle to open above $35 million for the weekend. To put that in perspective, it may very well set the record for the worst Pixar opening in history when you adjust for inflation. And even when you don't adjust for inflation, this movie might actually be in danger of not even matching the opening weekend all the way back from Toy Story in 1995. And yes, I'll repeat, without adjusting for inflation. This is an embarrassing flop for Disney. We saw it coming all the way, despite the fact that Disney, for decades, was known as the king of animation, the king of family-friendly animation, with everything they were doing, Disney animation and Pixar, all of this stuff. Now that is no longer the case, and in fact, it's the opposite. Families are rejecting Disney. They're tired of the identity politics. They're tired of everything this company's doing to not promote family values and, in fact, promote the exact opposite. They are done with Disney, and that is showing itself at the box office, despite trying to make excuses for the flops they had last year, like Lightyear and Strange World. They said, families, they just don't come to the theaters anymore. They're trained to watch things on streaming. Well, Minions Rise of Gru, nearly $1 billion. Super Mario Brothers, $1.3 billion. There is no excuse anymore when it comes to Disney, and this is looking worse than people could have thought. Elemental, an opposites attract love story set in a world of, elements, began its domestic box office jaunt with $2.4 million in Thursday previews. To put that in perspective, when we look at the disaster known as Lightyear from last year, this same weekend, what did it open to? $50 million opening weekend. But what was its Thursday preview? $5.2 million. That is over double what Elemental just opened to. So in theory, even getting to $35 million might be a struggle for Elemental. We might be looking at something that can't even get to $28 million. That's actually legitimately what we could be looking at. And the reason that would be so embarrassing is because even Toy Story, before Toy Story was a massive franchise, right? Its opening weekend in 1995 was $29 million. $29 million opening weekend for Toy Story. Think of how embarrassing it would be. I mean, what is that? Like 28 years later? Like 28 years later, and Elemental can't hit those type of numbers with all the inflation we've had, with as much ticket prices have gone up, all this stuff. Like, holy shit, they have to be in full panic mode right now. With merely decent reviews and little being sold beyond, hey, it's the next Pixar film, the Peter Sohn-directed flick could struggle to match the $29 million launch of Toy Story back in 1995, let alone the over-under $39 million Friday through Sunday debuts of The Good Dinosaur and Onward before COVID shut down the world. Just running the numbers, if Elemental legs over the weekend like Lightyear did last year, it'll open with just $23.5 million by Sunday night. And they say, being more optimistic, if it performs like Cars or performs like something else, maybe it could be okay. I don't think anyone expects that to be the case. This is worst case scenario. This is worse than they actually thought the worst case scenario was. People thought the worst case scenario was $35 million. But no, it might be as low as $25 million opening weekend. But this is the end result of Disney doing everything they can, everything in their power to drive families away, to say, we don't support your values, we don't support family-friendly stuff anymore. In fact, we'll do everything at every time we can to promote our woke ideology, the agenda that so many executives want to push, the not-so-secret gay agenda that they admitted to pushing on children. And now, predictably, families are out. Let me know what you think about this worse than anyone possibly even thought elemental box office flop in the comments section below. Smash a like button, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell for notifications, share this video out there, and I'll talk to you later.